I think like being aware of people suggesting things, like you were aware of someone, you should be a model. And it's like, no, no, no. And it happens again. You're like, well, maybe like, maybe I should try this twice in 1 week, you know? And so I think it's really important that we don't have, we can change, we can grow, we can evolve. And now we live in a world that's so much more possible, right? It's not weird to like switch jobs after a couple of years.
In fact, it's celebrated. It's celebrated, right? I mean, and particularly these days, a lot of the folks that I work with in my private practice, even if they stay in the same industry or the same space in general, they are encouraged actually to change jobs after every 3-4 years, right? It's a thing now. So absolutely, I think part of the, temptation for all of us is to impose these limitations on ourselves and then spend our lives trying to overcome these limitations. But all of it self-imposed. Yes, did we hear it from somebody else? Did we inherit from somebody else? Sure. But every day that we choose those limitations, it's our responsibility, but it's also within our power to make a different decision.
Yeah, I love it. So I have a question, and maybe there isn't, but I'm just wondering, is there a word or a sign, like a statement that someone might be saying that is like a sign of a limitation? Do you know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Is that clear?
Yes, totally. So I'm going to say something very strong and I can dilute it down, but every thought is limited. So we talk about limiting beliefs, but every belief is limited to the extent of this belief, right? Every single one. There's no exception to that rule. And so ultimately, the limitless state is one that is thoughtless, that's without thought, right? So every way in which you describe yourself or define yourself, you're actually limiting yourself, period. So that's the way to know it. Am I thinking, okay, I'm limiting myself in some way? Now, there are much less limiting thoughts than others, right? And so generally anything that sounds, I would say a better way to vet it for yourself is how does it feel when you say it, right? Because we can all say the same thing, but we'll all feel a little differently based on our experiences and what we sort of imagine for ourselves and how we see ourselves. And so I'd say you can vet your thoughts better by how they feel than what they sound like. So if the thought doesn't feel inspiring, enlivening, doesn't make you feel happy to be alive, it's probably a limiting thought.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I sometimes people wonder, like someone listening might be thinking, how do I know I should quit something? Right. And that's what your statement just came to. And I remember Brad and I were working on this project and I was really frustrated with it. I was crying. I was burnt out because I was trying to, do as a side hustle while I was working because I needed to make the money to make it happen. And so I was doing this job and this project of mine. And he was like, well, let's just quit it. Just quit it. Like if it's making you cry, just quit. And the feeling that came over me was regret and frustration and anger. Like that was not the answer. And so while I didn't know how I was going to make it work, I knew based on the feeling in my body that was the wrong thing to do. Like it didn't make me feel relieved. Like if I knew that was the right answer, I would have felt relieved. Okay, I'll just quit. But that wasn't it. So I think that's such a great thing. I think we forget that our body is really telling us a lot of things all day long.
Oh, the body is so much wiser than the brain is. It's older than the brain is, right? So you're absolutely right about that. If you ever have questions or doubts about what you think or believe, just check the body. The body will tell you, generally if it feels like relief or not. So you absolutely nailed it. I mean, and that's the challenge. That's the challenge with, and why we can't really give people like a guidebook or a rule book and say, these are the most limiting thoughts. Because for some people, that would have been the perfect answer. Quit. Yes, they feel relief. They want to just go running, and into the sunset. They would have loved it. But for you, it was a very different response. And that there was a deep knowing in that. So I agree with you there. And I've had the same experiences in my own life. Like, there have been opportunities for me where it's like, oh, you can get paid this amount of money to work this corporate job. And I'm like, kill me now. I'm good. I'm going to pass on that. But I love the idea for, the opportunity for somebody else. So you're absolutely right. I think we want to reach for feelings of relief ultimately. And that doesn't mean there aren't going to be moments that are uncomfortable that you still might want to lean into, but it's such a personal thing. It's very hard for somebody outside of you to tell you what's right for you.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part. Because everyone's listening, like, okay, tell me when I say this is the thing that's what's holding me back. Or when and it's just it takes so much personal knowing and just like checking in with yourself. And I think that takes so much work because I think a lot of people are scared of I think they know the answer and they're just scared of it. Like, it's just scary to do.
Well, absolutely. And it's so hard to hear your heart when your mind is so noisy, right? If you're listening to the mind and the mind shouts and it pretends to know so much, but it actually knows so little. The heart just speaks in a whisper and it knows everything, but you think that it knows nothing. So that's what any of these practices about. I mean, yoga or mindfulness or meditation or prayer or visualization, ultimately it's about quieting your mind, ideally long enough and deep enough that you can hear this deeper, intuitive, all-knowing presence, right? And so I love what you're saying there, and it's a little hard to figure it out when you're only living your life through your mind and through your thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, because of your journal that led to a book, you would tell people to journal. Yeah.
Yes. I love journaling. And I would say, depending on where you are, if you're just starting out in this journey, journaling, whatever, just free association is great. Whatever you're thinking and feeling is fine. Ultimately, though, you want to eventually get to a place where you're journaling or focusing on that which you love about life, about other people, and particularly about yourself. That'll help to rewire your brain to make happiness and love and peace much less effortful and much more automatic.